You may never read an OSHA regulation, see an OSHA inspector, or attend an OSHA training class. But the rules and regulations that OSHA develops and enforces help keep you safe on the job. In today's program, we'll discuss why OSHA was created, what its mission is, and how it affects both you and your employer. OSHA stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, an agency of the U.S. Department of Labor. OSHA has the responsibility for protecting workers' safety and health. The U.S. Congress created OSHA under the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, the OSH Act. Congress passed this law and established OSHA to assure, so far as possible, every working man and woman in the nation safe and healthful working conditions, and to preserve our human resources. OSHA was created because until 1970, there were no national laws protecting employees from safety and health hazards. With the creation of OSHA, for the first time, all employers in the United States had the legal responsibility to provide a safe and healthy workplace for their employees. Employers and workers in many fields are covered by the Act, including manufacturing, construction, longshoring, agriculture, medicine, and disaster relief. Religious groups are also covered if they employ workers for non-religious purposes, such as maintenance or gardening. OSHA's mission is to save lives, prevent injuries, and protect the health of America's workers. Some of the things that OSHA does to carry out this mission include developing job safety and health standards and enforcing them through worksite inspections, maintaining a reporting and record-keeping system that tracks job-related injuries and illnesses, and providing training programs to increase people's knowledge about occupational safety and health. Federal OSHA also helps to ensure safe and healthy working conditions by assisting with job safety and health programs that are operated by individual states. The OSH Act gives you many rights related to your safety and health on the job. These include the right to a safe and healthy workplace, the right to information about injuries and illnesses that occur in your workplace, the right to complain about a hazard to your employer and request that it be corrected, the right to know about hazardous chemicals you may work with, the right to be trained on how to deal with safety and health hazards. You also have the right to file a complaint with OSHA, participate in an OSHA inspection, and not be retaliated against for exercising your safety and health rights. The broadest and most important of these rights is the right to a safe and healthy workplace. A safe and healthy workplace means that hazards are removed from it and workers are trained on how to work safely. If a hazard cannot be removed completely, protection from that hazard must be provided. Another important right workers have under OSHA is the right to know about any hazardous chemicals in their workplaces. Employers must have a comprehensive written hazard communication program that includes information on container labeling, safety data sheets, SDSs, and worker training. The training must provide information on the hazards that the chemicals present and how workers can protect themselves from them. The hazard communication program must also include a list of the hazardous chemicals in each work area. OSHA's record-keeping rule requires most employers with more than 10 workers to keep a log of all work-related injuries and illnesses that result in an employee being away from work, restricted as to the type of work they can do, or transferred to another job. The log must also document any incident where the victim requires more than simple first aid. Another right that workers have under the OSH Act is to be able to discuss safety and health concerns in the workplace with their employers without the fear of being discharged or discriminated against. The Act specifically protects workers who complain to their employer about unsafe or unhealthy conditions. The OSH Act also gives you the right to receive training from your employer on a variety of health and safety hazards, as well as on the OSHA standards that your employer must follow. Additionally, the Act gives you the right to examine and copy your employer's medical records, as well as logs of any measurement or monitoring of exposure to toxic chemicals or other hazardous substances that has been done in your workplace. You have the right to file a complaint with OSHA if you believe that a violation of a safety or health standard or a situation that would place you or your coworkers in imminent danger exists in your workplace. OSHA has the authority to conduct a workplace inspection to determine if any hazardous conditions exist or standards have been violated. If they conduct an inspection in your workplace, you or your representative, such as a union steward or a safety committee member, have the right to participate in all phases of the inspection. You can point out hazards, describe injuries, illnesses, or near misses that resulted from those hazards, and describe any concern you have about a safety or health issue. You also have the right to see the inspection results and be advised of the measures your employer is taking to abate any hazards, as well as to participate in any meetings or hearings related to the inspection. Establishing a safe and healthy workplace requires every employer to make safety and health a priority. OSHA requires employers to do a number of things to accomplish this. To start, employers need to be familiar with the OSHA standards that apply to their workplaces and comply with them. When no specific standards apply, employers must still comply with the OSH Act's General Duty Clause. This requires them to furnish a place of employment which is free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm to employees. This begins by implementing safety policies and procedures called administrative controls in their facilities. Next, engineering controls are used to build physical safety measures into the workplace and even the job itself, to eliminate hazards or reduce exposure to them as much as possible. When engineering and administrative controls can't reduce employees' exposure to hazards to acceptable levels, OSHA requires employers to provide their employees with appropriate personal protective equipment, PPE. When PPE needs to be used, the employer must implement a personal protective equipment program that addresses the hazards that are present in each work area, the selection, maintenance, and use of PPE, employee training in the use of their PPE, and how the program will be monitored to ensure its ongoing effectiveness. OSHA believes that training is an essential part of protecting workers from injuries and illnesses. So OSHA standards make it the employer's responsibility to limit certain job assignments to employees who are certified, competent, or qualified, meaning that they have received thorough training for those tasks. Record keeping is another important employer responsibility. Injury and illness records allow OSHA to collect survey material, identify high-hazard industries, and inform you and other workers about the injuries and illnesses that occur in your workplace. Employers must set up an injury and illness reporting system within their facility. Report any accident that results in a fatality to OSHA within 8 hours of when it happens. Report any accident resulting in inpatient hospitalization, amputation, or loss of an eye to OSHA within 24 hours of the event. Post copies of the required annual summary of work-related injuries and illnesses in their facility, and provide copies of injury and illness logs to workers upon request. Additionally, employers must inform workers about how to report an injury or illness, as well as give OSHA access to all injury and illness records. When you're handling chemicals or other hazardous substances, your employer may be required to conduct exposure monitoring or provide medical examinations for you. Your employer must also give you copies of your medical or exposure records if you request them. The OSH Act provides workers with other types of protections as well, and prohibits your employer from discharging, retaliating, or discriminating against you or any other worker for exercising your rights under the Act. Depending on the circumstances, this can include being fired, laid off, demoted, or disciplined, being denied overtime or a promotion, having your number of work hours or pay reduced, or other similar actions. Employers must post a copy of any citation that they receive as a result of an OSHA inspection. Since the citation informs both the employer and workers of the standards that OSHA says have been violated, the length of time that the employer has to correct the violations, and any proposed penalties that are attached to the violations. Having access to this information can provide protection for you as well. As we discussed earlier, another form of protection that OSHA provides is to require the use of personal protective equipment when other controls cannot bring exposures to workplace hazards down to acceptable levels. It's the employer's responsibility to determine if and when PPE should be used. OSHA also requires that employers pay for most required PPE. As we've mentioned, the OSH Act authorizes OSHA-compliant safety and health officers, CSHOs, to conduct workplace inspections to determine if workers can perform their jobs in a safe and healthy way. Since OSHA can't inspect all of the 8 million work sites that they're responsible for, the agency has a system of inspection priorities that includes imminent danger situations, situations where fatalities or catastrophes have occurred, complaints and referrals, and regularly scheduled programmed inspections that address targeted hazards. There are 4 major stages in an OSHA inspection: presenting credentials, the opening conference, the walk-around, and the closing conference. When they arrive at a workplace to do an inspection, the inspector first presents their credentials to the person in charge. Then comes the opening conference, which will usually be brief. The inspector will explain why OSHA has selected that particular worksite for inspection, obtain information about the company, including copies of all hazard assessments, and explain the scope of the inspection as well as the procedures that will be followed. The inspector, along with the employer and worker representatives, will then proceed through the workplace, looking at work areas to determine if there are any potentially hazardous conditions. The inspector will also check the facility's injury and illness records, make sure that the required OSHA poster is displayed, and verify that the company's summary of work-related injuries and illnesses is posted from February 1st to April 30th each year. The inspector may also interview workers, take photographs or video, and monitor worker exposure to noise, air contaminants, or other substances. After the walk-around, the inspector will hold a closing conference with the employer and worker representatives. They will discuss any apparent violations that they have observed and how and when these violations should be corrected. The employer will be informed of their rights and responsibilities regarding the inspection as well. Once they're back in their office, the inspector will write up a report of their findings. The OSHA Area Director will then review the report and make a final determination as to what citations and penalties should be imposed, if any. Citations inform employers and employees about what violations exist and what OSHA standards are involved, what hazardous working conditions have been found, how long the employer has to correct or abate the hazards, and explain any proposed penalties. Penalties are based on the type of violation that has occurred. OSHA violations fall into 6 categories, including repeated, willful, serious, other than serious, and de minimis. De minimis is the least serious type of infraction and basically means a trifling matter. Employers and workers both have the right to disagree with or appeal parts of an OSHA citation. Workers may contest the length of time that has been given to the employer to abate a violation, but they cannot contest the citations or penalties themselves. If an employer decides to contest a citation, the abatement date, or the proposed penalty, this must be done in writing within a 15 working day contest period. If you, your coworkers, or your union representative feel that an OSHA inspection is needed to address hazards in your workplace, you have several options. You can file a complaint online at OSHA's website, www.osha.gov. You can also download the complaint form from the site, complete it, and send it back to OSHA via fax or snail mail. Another option is to telephone or visit your local or regional OSHA office to discuss your concerns. However, if you believe that a hazard in your workplace is life-threatening, you shouldn't delay. Call your local or regional OSHA office or 1-800-321-OSHA immediately. If you do decide to file a complaint form with OSHA, there are a number of things you must pay attention to. Be as specific as possible in your description of the problem and include as many details as you can. Be sure to enter your company's name, address, and the type of business that it's in. Describe the hazard and the location where it occurs in detail. You should indicate whether the hazard that you're complaining about has been brought to the attention of your employer or of another government agency. Be sure to say whether you tried to get your employer to fix the hazard before you file the complaint. You should also indicate if a building inspector or another agency, such as a local fire department, has been notified of the hazard. If so, OSHA may want to talk with them. Let OSHA know if you want to keep your complaint confidential. They will remove your name from the official copy of the complaint if you wish. Lastly, make sure you sign the complaint and provide your personal mailing address. There are many resources that are available both inside and outside of your workplace that can provide you with information on occupational safety or health issues. For example, labels and signs posted in your facility can make you aware of potential safety or health hazards and provide specific information about them. Your company will also have safety data sheets, SDSs, on file for all of the chemicals that you work with. An SDS will tell you about each chemical's hazards as well as the safety precautions to take, including what personal protective equipment you should wear when you handle them. Job orientation manuals, standard operating procedures, and training materials will also include information on the proper and safe ways that you can do your work. If the safety and health information that you need is not available in your own company, there are resources outside of your workplace that you can use. The OSHA website itself at www.osha.gov contains a lot of helpful material as well as links to even more resources. Your own primary care physician, nurses, and other healthcare professionals can provide information as well. So can your local library, which will have books, journals, and magazines that you can consult. At most libraries, you can also get access to even more health and safety information online. OSHA is always striving to help you work more safely. Sometimes the sheer number of regulations and the details that are involved can seem overwhelming, even to those of us that they protect. But what OSHA does and how it affects you can be summed up in a few important points. Let's review. OSHA's mission is to save lives, prevent injuries, and protect the health of America's workers. Employers have a number of responsibilities under OSHA, all focused on establishing a safe and healthy workplace. You have rights under OSHA as well. Be sure you know what they are and how to exercise them. Workplace inspections are an important part of OSHA's enforcement efforts. You need to know the part you can play in the process. There are information resources both inside and outside your company. You can visit www.osha.gov at any time to learn more about occupational safety and health. Remember, while OSHA's job is to help keep you and your coworkers safe, they can't do it by themselves. You are an important part of that effort.